Hello students, today we will discuss about the socio-economic analysis of communities. First we will know about the introduction to gender and its concepts. Gender refers to the socially determined differences between men and women such as roles, attitudes, behavior and values. Sex identifies the biological, genetically determined differences between women and men and is not amenable to change. Gender equality entails the provision of fairness and justice in the distribution of benefits and responsibilities between women and men. Gender equality is based on the premise that women and men should be treated in the same way. Gender blindness is inability to perceive different gender roles and responsibilities, the perceptions that all farmers are male and the failure to realize that research and project activities can have different effects on men and women. Gender awareness. Understanding that there are socially determined differences between men and women based learned behavior which affect their ability to access and control resources. And now gender sensitivity. This is encompassing the ability to acknowledge and highlight existing gender differences, issues and inequalities and incorporate these into strategies and actions. Gender discrimination. This is the prejudicial treatment of an individual based on gender stereotype. Gender issues are specific consequences of the inequality between women and men. And empowerment. This is the process of generating and building capacities to exercise control over one's life. Gender division of labor. This is the roles and responsibilities and activities assigned to women and men based on gender. Gender mainstreaming. This is the process of ensuring that women and men have equal access and control over the resources, development benefits and decision making at all stages of the development process. Now, let us see what is gender analysis, its significance and the steps in analysis. Coming to the analysis, the gender analysis is a systematic analytical process used to identify, understand, describe gender differences and the relevance of gender roles and power dynamics in a specific context. Such analysis typically involves examining the differential impact of development policies and programs on women and men and may include the collection of sex disaggregated or gender sensitive data. Gender analysis examines the different roles, rights and opportunities of men and women and relations between them. It also identifies disparities, examines why such disparities exist, determines whether they are potential impediment to achieving results and looks at how they can be addressed. Gender analysis always refers to the variety of methods used to understand the relationships between the men and women, their access to resources, their activities and the constraints they face relative to each other. Gender analysis provides information that recognize that gender and its relationship with race, ethnicity, culture, class, age, disability and other status, and that is important in understanding the different patterns of involvement, behavior and activities of that women and men having in economic, social and legal structures. The analysis always aims to achieve equity rather than equality. Gender equality is based on the premise that men and women should be treated in the same way. This approach has been criticized in failing to recognize that equal treatment will not produce equitable results, because men and women have different life experiences. Meanwhile, a gender equity approach takes into consideration the differences in women's and men's lives and recognizes that different approaches may be needed to produce outcomes that are equitable. Gender equality is based on the premise that men and women should be treated in the same way, but this fails to recognize that equal treatment will not produce equitable results, because men and women have different life experiences. It takes into consideration the differences in women's and men's lives and recognizes that different approaches may be needed to produce outcomes that are equitable. The analysis examines women's and men's specific activities, needs, access and control over resources, access to the development benefits, and finally decision making. When we do the analysis, let us see what are the steps that are there in the analysis. First and foremost is the activity profile. We have to consider and collect 6 disaggregated household, workplace and community data information, which refers to the differentiation by sex of statistical data and other information, which is sometimes called gender disaggregated data. This means gathering information of both male and female, shared as well as unshared tasks, and on the degree of fixity of the gender division of labor. The activity profile usually considers all categories of activities: productive, reproductive and community related service, etc. It identifies how much time is spent on each activity, how often this work is done, like for example daily or seasonally, which periods are characterized by a high demand of labor, and what extra demands the program inputs will make on women, men and children, and so on and so forth. This step in the gender analysis process describes who does what within the household or in the community, in the workplace, in the organization or the sector also. The activity profile also identifies where the activities take place at home or elsewhere, that is the village, marketplace, fields or urban centers, and how far these places are from the household. This information gives insights into the female and male mobility also. Let us see what are the issues considered under the activity profile. They include production of goods and services, reproductive and human resource maintenance activities, community work, community organization and activities. The second thing is access and control profile. The access and control profile considers productive resources such as land, equipment, labor, capital, credit, education and training. This differentiates between the access to the resource and control over the decisions regarding its allocation and use. The profile examines the extent to which women are impeded from participating equitably. For example, if women have limited access to income or land, they may be unable to join groups which provide production inputs and commercial opportunities or become independent commercial producers. This part of gender analysis describes who has what within the household, community, workplace, organization or sector, including who has power. And the third one is the analysis of factors and trends. This analysis considers the structural and socio-cultural factors that influence the gender patterns of activity and access and control in the project area. Demographic factors including household composition and household headship, general economic conditions such as poverty levels, inflation rates, income distribution, internal terms of trade and infrastructure, cultural and religious factors, education level and gender participation rates, political, institutional and legal factors. Another analysis is about program cycle. This will indicate if and where the objectives and methods proposed for the project should be modified to improve the chances that the project will succeed and to minimize the likelihood that women will be disadvantaged as a result of it. Some questions that may need to be considered in this analysis deal with production processes, training, information, participation, access, institution building, project framework, etc. Develop strategies to address barriers and constraints include these strategies in program project design and implementation and ensure that they are adequately resourced. We also should assess the counterpart or partner capacity for gender sensitive planning, implementation and monitoring, and develop strategies to strengthen capacity. We also have to assess the potential of the program project to empower women, address strategic gender interests and transform gender relations. There is a need to develop gender sensitive indicators to monitor participation, benefits, the effectiveness of gender equality strategies and change their relations. Now let us see, there is an approach called socio-economic and gender analysis approach. It is also called SIGA. One major challenge for the future is to ensure that gender analysis is integrated into a broader socio-economic analysis of programs and projects along with sustainability and poverty analysis. The main objective of this approach is to close the gaps between what people need and what development delivers. This package is developed in response to the growing need for community-based extension functionaries to deal with a multitude of challenges facing rural households. By putting socio-economic analysis and gender analysis together, SIGA helps us to learn about community dynamics, including the linkages among social, economic and environmental patterns. It clarifies the division of labor within a community, including divisions by gender and other social characteristics. SIGA facilitates to take a realistic look at the development challenge, looking into the socio-economic patterns at different levels and for different people. For any one development problem, a number of different socio-economic patterns play a role. One, for example, the lack of food security in a village may stem from environmental problems such as drought, as well as economic problems such as the lack of labor opportunities or institution problems such as inadequate extension training on food conservation methods and social problems such as discrimination against women. So, there is a tool package connected with this approach, that is SIGA tools package. This consists of the first, development context toolkit. This is to learn about the economic, environmental, social and institutional patterns that pose supports or constraints for development. The relevant tools used for analyzing contextual issues at the micro level include village resource maps, village social maps, trend lines, Venn diagram, institutional profile. And the second thing is livelihood analysis toolkit. This tool enables to learn about how rural people as individuals, their households and communities develop their means of livelihood, with which resources and how. The third one is stakeholders priorities for development toolkit. This enables development agents to learn about the priority actions and development opportunities for addressing the identified problems. This kit helps in planning development activities based on women's and men's priorities. Stakeholder analysis tools are pair-wise ranking, problem analysis chart, stakeholder conflict and partnership matrix, best action plan. The fourth one is participatory monitoring and evaluation tools. Now, let us in detail discuss about the rapid rural appraisal and participatory rural appraisal, which are otherwise also called RRA and PRA. RRA is a social science approach that emerged in the early 80s for application in development cooperation. In it, a multidisciplinary team makes use of simple non-standard methods and the knowledge of local people to quickly elicit, analyze and evaluate information and hypotheses about the rural life and rural resources that are of relevance for taking action. RRA techniques are an attractive alternative to conventional survey methods. It is a speedy and action-oriented assessment of local knowledge, needs and potentials with an aim to elaborating strategies to resolve conflicts or investigate specific problems. RRA can be defined as a systematic semi-structured activity conducted on site by a multidisciplinary team with the aim of quickly and efficiently acquiring new information and hypotheses about rural life experiences and resources. Participatory rural appraisal is otherwise called PRA, is a way of enabling local, that is rural or urban people, to analyze their living conditions, to share the outcomes and to plan their activities. It is a handing over the stick to the insider in methods and actions, that is none but the rural person. The outsider's role is that of a catalyzer, a facilitator and convener of processes within a community which is prepared to alter their situation. PRA is an approach and methodology to enable local people to share, enhance and analyze their knowledge of life and conditions to plan and to act. Why do you need this PRA? This is mainly to enable development practitioners, government officials and the local people to work together to plan appropriate program. It also helps in avoiding biases and prejudices. It ascertains first-hand and latest information. It also facilitates to get or understand villagers' views, to learn local situation and conditions, understand the community, gain the confidence and credibility, ensure sustainability and ownership, reduce the distance and feel them as partners in the development and reduce pilferages. Why are these RRA and PRA methods used? It is only in order to ascertain needs that are none but the felt needs and also to establish priorities for development activities. Within the scope of the feasibility studies, it can be really helpful, all these methods. During the implementation phase of the projects, these methods, they will be helping within the scope of monitoring and evaluation of the projects. They are useful for studies of specific topics, for focusing formal surveys on essential aspects or to identify conflicting interests between groups. Now, let us see what are the advantages of PRA. We get latest information. The people have, they may be having likes and dislikes. There will be a clear cut understanding about this also, and there is a possibility of continuity of the activity called sustainability. People can be empowered to choose their choices. They also will be enabling their capacities and confidence, builds their ownership and it provides critical information. We can listen to the people, help wiser understanding to the implementers also happens during these methods. Now, let us understand the different other analysis methods, just like surveys, case studies and observation. Let us just first deal with survey method. Survey method is the technique of gathering data by asking questions to people who are thought to have desired information. A formal list of questionnaire is prepared. Generally, a non-disguised approach is used. The advantages of survey method are they are effective to produce information on socio-economic characteristics, attitudes, opinions, motives, etc. They also help to gather information for planning product features, advertising media, sales promotion, channels of distribution and other marketing variables. Questioning is usually faster and cheaper than observation. Questions are simple to administer, and also the data that is being collected is reliable. The variability of results may be reduced, or it is relatively simple to analyze, quote and interrelate the data obtained by the survey method. The disadvantages of the survey method is unwillingness of the respondents. They do not want to provide the information. The inability of the respondents, this may be due to lack of knowledge or lapse of memory. The inability to identify their motives and provide also reasons why for their actions also. Human biases of the respondents also to some extent it goes in the way, and that is nothing but the ego. There are techniques of survey methods. Let us see what are they. First thing is telephonic interview, personal interview, mail interview and electronic interview. The case study is an intensive study of one individual, and typically the case study may involve interviews, observation, experiments and tests. Advantages of case studies: it gives the accurate data and they can collect a very detailed analysis, and the disadvantages of the case study is it is difficult to generalize and also it consumes a lot of time. A confidential and sensitive information may not be given. The interviewer bias will always be there. The next method is observation. This is a systematic data collection approach. The researchers use all of their senses to examine people in natural settings or naturally occurring situations. The people through the observation of a field setting involve prolonged engagement in a setting or social situation, clearly expressed self-conscious notations of how observing is done, methodological and tactical improvisation in order to develop a full understanding of the setting of the interest, imparting attention in ways that is in some sense standardized, recording one's observations. When self-report data asking people what they do is likely to be different from actual behavior, what people actually do. Like this it varies, and also observation may be used in conjunction with other quantitative data collection techniques also. Skills required in observation are capturing details, discerning, interpreting, validating. Components that to be observed also should be kept in mind and then you should observe. Regarding the characteristics of the participants during the observation, their interactions should be observed. Non-verbal behavior also is necessary. Their leadership and group patterns also should be taken into consideration. Physical surroundings, their products, their outcomes and also what is the impact should be observed. Regarding the advantages of observation method, the data collected by observation always are more objective and generally more accurate. The biasing effect of interviewers is either eliminated or reduced. The disadvantages of observation method are also there. The most limiting factor is in the use of the observation method, the inability to observe such things such as attitudes, motivations, customers or consumers state of mind, their buying motives and their images also. It also takes time for the investigator to wait for a particular action to take place. Observational data are more expensive to obtain than other survey data. The observer has to wait doing nothing between events to be observed. The unproductive time is an increased cost. Participant observation. This is sometimes called a naturalistic method. In naturalistic observation, the observed does not intervene at all. The researcher is invisible and works hard not to interrupt the natural dynamics of the situation being investigated. So, with this I conclude the socio-economic analysis of communities. Any questions?
Ma'am, I have one question. Which is the best method of socio-economic analysis of communities?
Participatory rural appraisal is the best method of socio-economic analysis, where the interviewee or the person who is doing the research will not be person who is active, but he facilitates the analysis by the rural people themselves or the communities themselves. So, that is the best one where reliable information can be extracted. Any more questions? With this, I conclude the topic of socio-economic analysis of communities. Thank you.